This is MBA Applify, the first AI writing assistant specifically for MBA applications. They have a bold claim that you can use their AI to draft a strong business school application essay for a top program in just 15 minutes. That's 500 words in 15 minutes. Is that really possible? Writing is hard. There's so much time spent staring at a blank page before putting anything to paper, even when you know what you want to write about. I'd probably get up to get coffee at least 3 times. So I set out to test this claim with a $10 subscription to MBA Applify and a coffee already in hand to sip while the MBA Applify AI assistant thinks. To write essays, we need an example profile. The key to great essays are deeply reflective, authentic, and compelling application stories. In fact, MBA Applify won't even let you use the AI assistant until you've defined personal stories for your application. The whole point of making writing easier with AI is so that you can spend more time focusing on the right and best stories to best communicate why you'd be a great fit for the MBA class, and less time in the manual writing process to put them into essay form. To make this as realistic as we can, we're going to use the application profile and stories of my friend Emily. Her career goal is to lead the robotics revolution. She has an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering and worked in consulting for 3 years. For AI to write essays, Emily's stories need to be detailed and deep. Emily put together a career goal story, which is what MBA Applify calls the connected story around her long-term goal, her short-term goal, and why MBA. These are not polished essays, but descriptions of the stories in Emily's own words as a starting point that can feed into any essay she drafts. Emily also laid out 2 of her leadership stories using MBA Applify's structured guide. The AI gets access to these stories, so it can draft authentic essays for Emily. I chose Columbia's main essay to test with since it's essentially a personal statement. They want to know your dream job and what you envision doing in the next few years. All of this is baked into MBA Applify's AI assistant, so it uses the knowledge of an admissions consultant or applicant lab, not just the generic knowledge of ChatGPT. Here is MBA Applify's AI assistant, a chat area where we'll refine essays for the specific school and essay we select, a draft section where we'll save our latest drafts, and a drop-down to select the stories we want the AI to use. I started the timer and click brainstorm to get an initial draft using ChatGPT's models, but built from the stories we've provided in MBA Applify's expert guide for this essay. The model thinks for around 15 seconds and doesn't just blindly provide a draft. It comes back with deep questions to push me to reflecting on the details and underlying intentions of my stories. I had to go back and forth with Emily to get deeper answers, and it helped us realize changes we needed to make to her stories to make them much more authentic and connected. I did this beforehand, realizing this is actually a key part of better writing prep before we can start actually writing a draft. I dropped into the chat what Emily provided for the types of questions we anticipated, a more specific, vivid moment from her anecdote for her long-term goal, and quick responses to the other questions to see what key points and moments from the other stories she thought were key to this essay. The fact that MBA Applify's tool reads your stories and then asks questions to get more details and doesn't just draft is incredibly important. MBA essays need to be deeply personal. When you try to do this with ChatGPT, you often get essays that sound great at a surface level, but don't have the detail you need, so they come across fake. MBA Applify then produced my first draft. As it says in the title, focusing on a logical and direct flow as a starting point. The essay starts immediately at the long-term goal, which isn't exactly what I imagined. I had wanted it to start with a creative hook to draw the reader in. It has the more creative hook as the second paragraph, so I'm going to ask it to reorient to my style. The actual wording is a bit too dramatic, which I'll also try to fix. But it does a good job of starting to integrate Emily's consulting story, where she realized she wants to transition to product and logically sequences the short-term and long-term goals after. I like to iterate quickly at first without too much deep thought to make the big changes first and get a feel for different options. I simply tell the assistant what flow I had in mind, where I want more detail and where I want less detail, and hit send. I get a second draft that nicely incorporated my feedback. It's already starting to look like a good personal statement. with a compelling and personal hook, a detailed long-term goal, and detailed stories to support. The wording is still too dramatic, especially up front, so I wanted to update that. It also has some gems, wording that I really like, talking about feeling hollow, is striking and vulnerable and brings emotion into the statement at a key point without going overboard. Since the essay has the components that I want, I copied it into the latest draft section and saved, so that the AI assistant starts to base its edits off of this version versus trying completely new things. And then I started giving it the feedback on wording, where I didn't like the essay. I think this is the most powerful part of writing with AI. I'm now reading my work as a reader, not a writer, which helps me better figure out what isn't working in the story instead of getting bogged down in the writing process. All right, let's fast forward through the rest of the editing process. I iterated a few more times with the AI, specifically trying different hooks, and then spent the last couple of minutes reading through and polishing. AI has a few bad habits. It uses a lot of hyphens, which admittedly I do too. And it tends to write sentences passively for dramatic effect, and we want more active sentences in MBA application essays. And I got to a rough draft I was happy with in under 15 minutes. The rough draft I ended up with is in the description below. So take a look through and let me know what you think of the quality of 15 minutes of writing.
Oh, and by the way, I copy and pasted the rough draft into an AI checker as well, and the text is analyzed to be human. Because I edited to the wording I like and kept an eye out for hyphens and passive wording, I got all the benefits of AI writing without the issues.
The main thing I learned from testing MBA Applify is that the AI writing assistant made me a better writer by making me a reader. I was able to put myself in the shoes of the audience in the writing process more than I ever would have if I was writing each sentence myself from scratch for a first draft. I wasn't wedded to the wording, and I could see the forest for the trees. When the stories didn't connect, I realized I needed to rethink the stories. Initially, we had stories Emily wanted to use about riding in the car with her dad on long road trips. I focused more on her curiosity than a passion to create a specific solution. We had a specific conflict in her consulting story that was distracting and not compelling. Her long-term goal was about household robotics in general, which was too broad, and her essay came out bland. Becoming the reader, not just the writer, is incredibly powerful to improving your essays. And we successfully tested the claim. We were able to develop a solid rough draft in around 15 minutes. Read the draft in the description below and let us know what you think and whether you think it meets the criteria of a good draft. You can try MBA Applify yourself for just $10 for the first week. We're excited to have gotten to test it on a real essay and see real value from AI in the writing process.